As someone who spent his childhood rummaging around in his grandmother's attic, I can tell you can find a lot of wonderful treasures and sometimes some hidden secrets. To wit, a book that I'm looking very forward to reading, Sarah's Secret, a Western tale of betrayal and forgiveness. And today we speak with its author, Bev Scott. Bev, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, David.
So, first off, tell me how you got the idea for Sarah's Secret, and then we'll get into what it is without betraying the plot.
Well, it's a story that is inspired by the lives of my grandparents. And the secret is actually the secret that was rumored in my family. So I was interested in researching and finding out if I could get a little more information about it.
Right. Without giving away the whole plot, can you tell us a little bit about what is Sarah's Secret?
Yes. Sarah married Sam, who was 30 years her senior. And after he died, she returned to her home territory in Nebraska and discovered that he wasn't the man she thought he was. And she had 5 children, had to figure out how to cope with poverty and illness and loneliness, and figure out how she was going to find some forgiveness in her heart.
So, what did you learn about your family, but also what did you learn about yourself? It's a two-part question.
Yes.
In discovering your own grandmother's and grandfather's secret, but also in writing the book.
Well, let me answer the question about my family first. What I discovered about my family, which leads into myself, is that I'm very intrigued by my ancestry, and that my family didn't talk much about it. So I always had the image that we were pioneers, which the family moved across the country and homesteaded and so forth. So that part, I had that image of being a pioneer. But what I learned about myself in that process is that I am a pioneer in many respects as well, even though I live in a city and but that I am very intrigued by the life that my grandmother lived. And as I was writing Sarah's Secret, really felt like in many ways I was channeling my grandmother.
Now, you say that you consider yourself a pioneer. In which way?
Well, I've done some things in my life that no one else in my family had. And certainly, as a woman, I was very engaged in a professional career most of my life, and was often the first. So in that sense, I was a pioneer.
What did you learn specifically about your grandmother? Is she still the heroine she always was to you? I mean, was the revelation of the family secret, and I know I'm kind of pushing you a little bit without giving you the plot, but tell me a little bit more about what was the secret? You say your grandfather, that your grandfather wasn't the man your grandmother thought he was. What do you mean by that?
Well, the secret is about him, and it is about his life before he married my grandmother. And he did not tell her about that prior life. So when she found out that she was not going to get widow's benefits that she had expected she was going to get, she was devastated. So the only reason I know that is because my research started in the National Archives. And in the National Archives, thank goodness for taxpayer dollars for the National Archives, I found a treasure trove of documents. And in those documents were depositions that documented his prior life, and also documented her devastation.
Right. But at some point there must have been an aha moment that made you go to the National Archives. I mean, like as I said, I'm fascinated by family history. Our family goes back to the 1600s. And, you know, you alluded to it when we started talking that there's the narrative that every family talks about. You know, yours was, oh, we were the homesteaders, and it's all courageous and positive. And,
Right.
you know, in my family, it's all about being dirt poor farmers and all of this. They kind of leave out the fact that my family were slave owners because that's not so attractive.
Right.
You know, at what point did something come to you and say, something's not adding up in my family history. I need to go and dig deeper?
Well, I think there are 2 or 3 things that happened for me. One was I grew up not knowing anything about my grandfather, and when I asked about him, the subject got changed, especially when I asked my grandmother. Now, he died when my father was 4, so my dad didn't know him. But as an adult, you know, probably in my 40s, I went to a family reunion, and one of my aunts had been doing some genealogy, and she was the one that had sort of begun to follow some of the rumors. And then probably 10 or so years later, another aunt really encouraged me to find out more about this man. So it was that kind of family encouragement that led me to the National Archives. Mm-hmm. He was a veteran. He was a veteran in the Civil War. And the National Archives has documents for all the veterans. So I knew that I would find something. I had no idea the richness of the documents that I found.
So how much of your grandmother and your grandfather is in you? And how much of your grandmother and grandfather are in this book?
Well, I would give about the same answer. That is, in the book, a lot of my grandmother is in the book, and a lot of her is in me, because I knew her until I was out in 7th, 8th grade when she died. I knew nothing about my grandfather, and there are a couple of pieces of factual data that's in the book. The rest of it is fiction.
Right.
About him.
Right. You know, we met and talked about this book for the first time when we were having lunch, talking about an organization which I think is, in its own way, a purveyor of family history, the Horizons Foundation. You have worked with Horizons, helping raise money for a number of years. What do you think the parallels are between a family history and kind of preserving our history through work like the Horizons Foundation does?
Oh, that's an interesting question. I'm not sure I've thought about that. The first thing that popped up for me was that some of us that are older in the LGBT community had secrets. Mm-hmm. And I certainly did in the early part of my life as a lesbian. And so in that sense, I think some of us have had secrets, like my grandmother's secret about her ex-husband, or her former husband, I guess is the right way to say that. I also think that in the community, we tended to create our own families and pull people into our lives that are like family, but may not be biologically related.
Well, yes, as you know, as Armistead Maupin famously made the quip, there is biological family, and then there's our
chosen family.
Logical family.
Yes.
Now, this is your first work of fiction.
Right.
But you have written nonfiction before. What's harder?
Oh, writing fiction's harder. At least it is for me.
Why are you so much freer? You can make anything up.
Well, that is true, but you also have to write it in a way that engages the reader in a story. There has to be a plot, you have to develop the characters. When you're writing nonfiction, especially that I was writing books related to my professional career, I was pretty knowledgeable about the topic. When I started out writing this, I had to learn about writing fiction. I didn't consider myself an expert in it as a fiction writer. Now,
we've only got a couple minutes left. I want to talk to you a little bit about the process of writing, also the process of publishing. Part of it's selfish. I mean, I finished my first novel and trying to get it published. You went the way of self-publishing versus an agent. Why is that? And what advice would you have to a first-time author, present company included?
Well, I'll tell you why I made the choice and then tell you what advice I might give. I was writing a story, which is a family story. It's not a popular genre in today's literary market. And I am no longer a spring chicken, so I was not wanting to wait around to try to find a publisher and that sort of thing. So I wanted to get it published. I also wanted to have control over the cover and the title and the content. And having published traditionally before, you don't always have that control.
Right, right.
So those are the reasons I chose to do that. And I think I also wasn't writing the book to start a new career. If one is writing in order to launch a writing career, then it might be worth pushing to find a publisher, a traditional publisher. But on the other hand, self-publishing is a way to get your book out there, and very often traditional publishers find it and then publish it.
Right. We've just got about 20 seconds left. What did you learn about yourself from Sarah?
I learned that I have a lot of strength and resilience. And certainly Sarah is a fabulous role model. And of course, Sarah is like my grandmother.
Pioneer spirit.
Right.
Thanks very much. We've been speaking with Bev Scott, author of Sarah's Secret, a Western tale of betrayal and forgiveness. I'm David Perry. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next week right here on 10%.